We're back with Mark Cohodes. He's a 30-year veteran of the other side of the market. That's the short side of the market. You've focused on Canada here recently. You're not new to thinking about Canada. You've hit some of the high and low spots of the Canadian equity market over the last few years. But right now, you're also focused on housing. I know you were just in Vancouver. Give us your perspective of what's going on in that province, where that city, where house prices are through the roof.
Well, Vancouver's not even a bubble; it's a parabolic. It's the money laundering center, in my mind, of North America. I had lunch and hung out with a guy named Sam Cooper, who writes for The Province, and I'm convinced when this Vancouver story plays out, his movie and his book will be bigger than The Big Short.
Does anybody have facts on the money laundering side of the real estate market in Vancouver?
Well, the crazy thing is it's sort of going on in broad daylight, and whether it's the regulators or the politicians or who have you, I frankly think they're all in on it because they're just looking the other way. And the population, the non-money launderers, are screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs. Some of Cooper's reporting and a lady named Kathy Tomlinson with the Globe is nothing short of outstanding. I've never seen anything like it. I've never, ever, ever seen anything like it. And I've seen some crazy stuff in my day. The locals now call it Hongcouver. And frankly, it's very sad because what's going to happen is you're going to take a beautiful town and you're going to ruin it with basic criminals who are fleeing China and laundering money in BC. And it's wide open. It's right there. And if the politicians or the regulators, who in my mind are captured, if they want to stop it, they can stop it at the drop of a hat. But I just don't think they want to right now. And why, I don't know.
We've seen almost similar price increases in Toronto and some other centers across the country. Are they, in your view, driven by the same thing, or is it other dynamics?
Well, there's really two hot markets. I mean, there's Vancouver and Toronto, and everything else is either in the soup or heading into the soup. You just saw a condo developer, Urban Corp, go bankrupt just like that. They were in business for 20 years, and all of a sudden they're broke. That should be very troubling to people. That, in my mind, is a canary in a coal mine. Toronto's very different. I mean, people live in Toronto, people work in Toronto, people make money in Toronto. But really, when you think of Vancouver with the price of housing, the incomes that people make just do not justify where the prices are. And when you look at the money laundering transactions that are going on, whether they're in high rises or freestanding, it's just the prices are outrageous, and they're all by Chinese people,
right,
with young kids driving Lamborghinis, cracking Lamborghinis up, and it's just a very troubling sight.
Mark, I know you've been short Home Capital. It's not been the greatest place to be here recently. The Dutch auction has taken the stock higher. Do you remain short, and why?
Well, I'm short Home Capital. I think Home Capital next to Concordia and maybe Entertain is the absolute best short in Canada. Home Capital, despite a so-called boom in the GTA, has missed their originations, and they've missed their earnings for the last 6 quarters. Their reserves are non-existent. They're essentially 15 basis points. For example, Home Capital has $800 million of unsecured exposure in Alberta. And if you believe their numbers, which I don't believe, they're reserving $1.2 million for Alberta housing, which has been termed by some as in a depression. So 1.2 million in housing, I'm trying to wrap my brain around that, and that's essentially 3 to 4 houses of reserve that Home Cap is taking. So not only are their reserves non-existent, last year, I think in July, they admitted to first 900 million, then another 900 million of, I'm not going to use the F word, irregularly originated loans.
Mark, I'm afraid we're going to lose our window, so I'm going to have to close it there. We'll do this another time. Thank you very much for bringing your side of the story.
Okay, Francis.
Mark Cohodes joined us from San Francisco, and I'll note that Concordia, just back to Concordia, have issued some of their commentary in terms of product pricing, and that they argue their pricing is responsible.